Thank you, Claire. Good afternoon, everyone. I think next time I'll put a condition not to read my bio because it's a waste of time. We better move on to the presentations, and there should be my presentation on the screen. And do I see it here? Barely. Indoor air in Australia. I will be briefly talking about these two reports. The first one, State of Indoor Air in Australia, was launched at the conference in Melbourne 3 weeks ago. This is the first ever report of this type, not only in Australia but internationally. And the, this is the problem with this. Not seeing, okay, I will speak like this to see the screen because what I see there. And the report launched today. So that's what we'll be talking about. But just to make sure that we understand that all this activity hasn't started just last year, 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, a little history of this. This conference, which took place, 31 years ago at the Gold Coast, indoor air and integrated approach. This is what we are talking right now. This was a conference which I organized 3 years after I started at QUT. The major sponsor for the conference was the US EPA, co-organized with the Kazan's Clean Air Society of Australia and New Zealand, my university, and a few others. So we were working already on this with this vision of bringing everything together. Now, who are we? The conference was attended by about 300 participants. Most of them were from overseas, but there was Australian researchers as well. So this list here, very unclearly seen there, are those who presented at the conference and had their paper in the proceedings. So that's what I'm saying. It hasn't started now, it's been happening. Now, there's been lots of things happening, and I could again talk about this. But one aspect here, which was discussed, a little bit later after this conference took place. Summary of factors contributing to limited progress in mandating indoor air quality. So globally, what the problems, the complexity globally, and so on. But specifically in Australia. So this is a list of a few points. No single national government authority responsible for indoor air quality. Responsibility is spread. Environment legislation and health legislations are different. There are no performance standards for indoor environment, only design. Occupational environments treated differently. There's lack of funding, confidential, and so on. Do we associate with this list? Did we write this list for the current discussion with the government? No, this list comes directly from the paper which I presented at this conference in Finland in 2000. It's directly from there. So 25 years ago, and the issues are exactly the same as they were then. But we are here now, and that's quite amazing. Why are we here now? Now, it's like two eras, historical eras, which are happening. What was before the pandemic and the life since the pandemic. Now, so the pandemic was, in a way, a turning point in attracting the world's attention to air quality, indoor air quality. But in Australia, it was not only the pandemic, it was, as we all know, bushfires, which were just before the pandemic. So it was quite amazing. Then I was interviewed many times and asked, okay, what to do to protect people from bushfires? Well, close up, recirculate, and so on. The same journalist 3 months later asking me what to do now because the pandemic. Completely opposite. And of course, many of our buildings are not able to do this. So we are in this new era, new historical era in Australia, and we should take all the advantage of this and make sure that that momentum will bring, permanent change. So a few words about this report, which was launched in Melbourne and the Kazan's conference 3 weeks ago. What was the purpose of this report is to fill the knowledge gap of previous state of environment report. There have been a number of reports like this, but none of indoor air, and support development of appropriate policies and market responses to reduce exposure and so on. So this was the purpose of this. Now, again, we wanted to do this in a reasonable period of time. We couldn't cover absolutely everything, so the decision was to focus on this specific pollutants. It's a quite long list of pollutants, but it's not everything. In particular, mold is not included here, and mold is a very big problem in Australia, and not only. So the decision was to focus on this. However, the already agreement is that this report will be, its new version will be, we haven't decided whether in 2 years or 3 years. It will have a different format, not to repeat exactly what was here, but to focus on aspects which we didn't include here and to the new direction. So this is the list of pollutants where we searched for papers published. And this is what happened. We found 106 peer-reviewed papers since 2000. Again, that was since 2000, which was published including these pollutants. It's very likely that something was missed, like in any literature search, and we already identified 2 or 3 more, but this is the sort of the biggest body of what we found. Now, in a sort of big summary of what it covers. So, what it covers in terms of number of buildings, any types of buildings, public buildings, residential buildings. So, those publications included about research covered about 2,000 buildings. Now, we also included lists from neighbors, another 500. So, altogether, it was about 2,500 buildings. It is less than 0.03% of buildings in Australia. Isn't this amazing? It doesn't mean that there are no measurements, there will be no measurements at all taken anywhere else, but they are confidential, not published, and there's no way of find out anything about this. So this is the state of indoor air. That's all what we know about these buildings. Now, again, we could look at different comparisons for different types of buildings, but there's no time here for this. I just wanted to make one point. So this is space, CO2, in office space in CO2 concentration. So you see this here, this assessment. So the colors are a bit difficult to interpret, but the largest fraction of this pie is in orange, means concentration below 800 ppm. That's what we currently recommend for public buildings. So as you can see, the vast majority of the buildings for which data exists already meet this. That's excellent, isn't it? Well, consider that only a fraction of percent was measured, and that's where researchers were allowed to. But a different world, schools. School space CO2. Now, we were not able to generate a pie like this because it's even less information or information which could be compared. So on only 100 schools, 3 universities, and so on. So we can't do it like this. But the reality is that while office buildings are in general mechanically ventilated, like this wonderful building here, and air quality is in general better. Schools are naturally ventilated. If windows are closed, there's no ventilation at all whatsoever. So this was from this one particular study. That was the assessment. Half of the classrooms exceeded 1,800 ppm. Some reached 5,000 ppm. How long it spread, and so on. So the conditions and those other publications, they are reported findings like this as well if they measured CO2. So there are 2 completely different worlds, and somehow we worry about adults at workplace, and some workplaces, like if you are a politician here, that's very good, but not everywhere. So we could talk much more about this, but these are just some main points which I wanted to make. And here it is this report, and we are extremely grateful to the Academy for, well, championing this happenings and helping with this whole process, very complex process to make everybody heard. I'd like to cite the words of the president of the Academy in his introduction to this, what it is about, the responsibility and the opportunity sit with us all to work together across government, industry and academia to take head of this knowledge into deliver healthy indoor air for everyone. That's what we must do. That's what came from the first panel. We must work together and in the same direction. If each of us or each organization goes in a different direction, we may not achieve much with politicians. So it's extremely important that we work together. So again, we could talk for the rest of the day about this report, and I know that Anna Maria will be talking more. So this is just the content of what is included in the report, and as you can see, it's very comprehensive in aspects which are covered. So again, I'd like to make 3 points. So the first about the understanding. So the fact that we have the knowledge, that's the conclusion very strongly presented by the report. Substantial and growing scientific understanding of the sources, of the processes, of the impacts, of the role of airborne pathogens, and the burden of disease, as well as economical factors. So we know this. We may not know all the factors everywhere, all the numbers. We would like to know much more about the economic assessment, but what we know is enough for us to act. Well, being an academic, I should be the first one saying, well, we need more research, money for research, let's keep research going. I'm saying I don't need more money for research. We need to use this knowledge. This is the most important now. So this is science, and likewise practice, what's available in practice. So we have technologies which make it possible to put them for action in existing buildings, in new buildings, so technologies are there. There are also often questions coming how to balance with other requirements, because we cannot say, okay, from now on we don't worry about anything else. Buildings must just provide clean indoor air, anything else doesn't matter, it does. Because if we start exceeding energy consumption, it's not going to do as good from the climate and so on. So we must balance this, and it is entirely possible. In fact, optimization for indoor air quality is likely to result in lowering energy consumption as well. So with flexible, so this is with flexible and responsive building system, it is possible to optimize energy use in buildings by delivering ventilation to occupants only where they are and when needed. So that's the state of play. Now, what we propose in terms of the pathway to clean indoor air. Step 1, establish a multidisciplinary task force and as recommended in the final report of the inquiry into long COVID and repeated COVID infection. This would serve as a critical enabler to develop a government framework to address indoor air quality in Australia. This is extremely important because let's say that I'm, for kind of some miracle, so I'm the only one asked to serve and help the government. Would I do a good job? No, I wouldn't. I'm a physicist, I'm a scientist. If we don't have engineers in the room, if we don't have architects in the room, if we don't have public health practitioners and so on, we won't give a good advice to this extremely complex issue. So it's not just one area. So that's what we need. And that's what we've been calling for a while. So actually this was my recommendation to this panel, which was based and included first in this publication in the Australian Medical Journal so that healthy indoor air is our fundamental need. The time is to act now. This was not just call for action, but it has blueprint what to do in that paper specific on infection transmission. But this recommendation to establish was there. So that must happen as soon as possible. And stage 2, towards this 3-phase approach. Requirement for monitoring without a reporting standard, and legislated indoor air quality standard for all public buildings. Without monitoring, nothing is happening. If we were to take action, for example, in any place, is it good, is it bad? We don't know. If we don't know, we can't do anything. Any legislation about any environmental aspect must be based on monitoring. And that monitoring must be happening in every space. It's not like outdoor that we need just a network of monitoring stations. We can model, we can use satellite data, and based on this have an idea what's happening in the city. We cannot predict what's in this room based on what is in the room next door room. We must monitor in every room, which means we must use new technologies, low-cost sensors, monitors, very advanced already, which enable us to monitor in every room. So starting with monitoring everywhere. So the next is reporting standard. That was like it was initially when PM2.5 standard was introduced in Australia in 2003. It was initially a reporting standard. So jurisdiction had to monitor and report, but they were not liable yet for exceedances. This gave them 13 years until 2016, when that standard became mandatory. So, well, everybody has to report, but not yet comply, and eventually legislated indoor standard for all public buildings. There's absolutely no doubt that this is the only trajectory. Putting this as a personal responsibility, putting this as a voluntary, this is a absolutely basic thing for us. So to conclude, this statement, clean air is not a privilege but a right, were the words of Dr. Maria Neira, one of the key directors in the WHO at the time, at the second global conference of the WHO on air quality and health in Cartagena, in Colombia, in March this year. Now, I taking this and sort of putting a bigger picture. This was my statement during this UN event. Access to clean air is a universal human right within the broader right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, according to the 2022 United Nations General Assembly resolution on the promotion and protection of human health. Full stop. Australia signed this resolution, which means that the responsibility is the responsibility of governments around the world, including in Australia, to legislate on both outdoor and indoor air quality and the measures necessary to achieve it, including monitoring, controlling emissions at the source, and reducing human exposure to air pollution. It's not a privilege, it's our right, and that's how we should fight for our rights. Thank you.